Welcome to Caribbean Mystics Podcast,
where we marry mysticism, superstition, and lore. I'm your host, Paulina.
And I'm your host, Gabrielle, and we are your resident Caribbean mystics.
Join us today as we explore the depths of real supernatural stories
told by real people located right in our very own backyard.
On today's episode of Caribbean Mystics, a young girl and her single father move into a new apartment, hoping for a fresh start. However, they soon discover they are not alone. Strange occurrences escalate into terrifying experiences. The small family must confront their deepest fears and uncover the dark secrets hidden within the apartment before it's too late.
All right, so I'm going to withhold my name just because it's a small island. I would say I was around between the ages of 7 and 10, around that age group. As a young child, I never really believed in certain things because my father used to try to scare me into paranormal stuff like, oh, they get ghosts hanging around your room if you don't go to bed, so I just think I never really paid much mind to it. When we had just moved into the apartment, I used to feel like when you walk into the door, you would get cold, or sometimes you will get burning hot, like as if a fire is near your skin. And my father would just think that it's just me not wanting to move into someplace new because where I used to live prior, I had a friend, every time I finished school, I would go play and everything. But now, I didn't have nobody in that area, so my father just think I was missing out. So he never really believed me until I started questioning certain things like, Daddy, why is it when I come home, all my hair is standing up on my skin? Why is it that I feel my heart immediately racing every time I go down the hallway? My first encounter there was we were trying to move boxes into my room. I stacked up 2 boxes of just my toys or stuffed animals, and I turned my back and everything just get knocked down. And my father looked at me, he's like, why you throw down your stuff for? Because he just think I had an attitude or whatever. And I tell him Daddy, I didn't throw anything down, it just probably fell. So I said, okay, I probably stuck it wrong. I go back in the room, and when I bend down to try to clean up everything, try to put stuff away, I start feeling a burn down my spine. And I'm talking about nothing like it's like heat. I'm talking a burn, like as if it's a rug burn that you got on your back. And I just start feeling shooting pain throughout my joints. So later on that night, I went to go take a shower. I'm in the bathroom, about to take off my clothes to jump in the shower, and I would see my curtain kind of move, like as if you have a hand on the curtain and you're slowly pulling away. And then I just freeze. I'm watching it. And then it just releases, as if the curtain just, like there's no more tension on the curtain. I start to slowly back away because I'm thinking there's something in the bathroom with me. And I started to feel for the door, but the door was locked. I know for a fact I didn't lock the door because I wasn't allowed to do that in my house. Once I figured out the door was locked, I started screaming. I started crying because I couldn't open the door. I calling for my father. My father rushed down the hall to come open my door. He couldn't open the door, and he's thinking I'm holding the door like I'm playing with him. The way he had to pull it is like he had to pull on the door for it to open because he said that it felt like the door was swollen shut. Once the door opened, immediately I just rushed into his arms and just hold on to him. And I begged him, I don't want to go. I don't want to go bathe. I don't want to go do that by myself. I'm scared. I'm afraid. So my father opened the door, sat down in the bathroom with me while I go bathe to kind of calm me down. And that night, I ended up sleeping right next to him. And he hold on to me. I could see it in his face that he started to believe me. A week goes by, nothing really was going on. He didn't question me. He didn't ask me about the encounter. He didn't say anything in regard to it. And then one night, he burst into my room because he said that he heard me crying and screaming as if bloody murder in the house. And I was fast asleep. The look he had on his face, I could never forget it. The look he had on his face as if this man it's like actually seeing a ghost. He looked so traumatized. He looked so scared because I guess the way he heard it. And since then, he started to get encounters as well. He ended up just bringing me in his room so I can go sleep right next to him. He didn't feel right. Like that entire night, I slept next to him. I could feel his body toss and turn, and he woke up drenched in sweat. And his room had an AC, so it was set to 62, so he shouldn't be sweating. The next day, he had asked me, did I wake up at all throughout the night? And I told him, only when you bust into my room is when I woke up. He's like, so you didn't scream, you didn't make any noise, did you go to bed on time? Were you watching something on TV? Like, I'm not playing with you, this is serious. I said, no, Daddy, I didn't do that. I've been sleeping. Later on that day, we went to a woman, her name is Betsy. And she is right across from the Catholic Church. She has a little, like a bodega or something, botanica. And my father had left me in the front and he went down in the back room and he spoke to her. And the next day she was at the house to do a blessing. She was chanting and doing a prayer in Spanish. Once she did that prayer, it was a different turn of energy in the house. I started getting encounters every single day, from the morning before I go to school to the afternoon when I come home from school. I was feeling burning while my father was feeling iced. I would feel my body starting to itch, starting to burn, especially if it's near my bedroom door. If I'm sitting down in front of my TV, I would feel the burning across my chest and my back. The second night after the blessing in the house, I was woken up and I was hearing water being poured on the floor and a bucket dropping. I got up out of my bed, went into the living room, and it was dark. No one was there. My father was still sleeping. I turned on the light to check to see if there was water on the floor. There was nothing. So I went to wake up my father and told my father that's what I was feeling. Like, that's what I heard. So he just told me, like, just go to sleep. You're fine. Don't worry about it. You're fine. I just kept telling him, no, I heard this. This is what I heard. I heard water being poured on the floor. And he just insisted that I just go to bed and we'll talk about it the next day. So later on that day, after my father picked me up from school, he was on the phone with my brother. And my brother had told him, because he was there earlier that day, he dreamed of a little boy pouring water on the living room floor. So exactly what I heard is what he dreamed of. My father's face just went flush. Like, his eyes shot wide open, like he couldn't believe what was being told to him. At that time, my father turned to me and he told me, he's like, there's paranormal activity going on in the house. So anytime you experience anything or feel anything, you come and tell me immediately. I don't care what time of day it is. If you have any dreams of anything, you tell me, but don't lie to me. I said, okay. And as a little girl, that scared the living crap out of me. Because that was a face my father made that I never seen before. I'd never seen fear in my father's eyes. A week goes by. I was sleeping. I just felt a very cold hand around my ankle. I was dragged off my bed. When I dropped on the floor, I screamed to the top of my lungs, and my father ran through the door and saw me, and I am curled up in fetal position, screaming, and he couldn't get me to stop screaming. And he told me, what am I doing on the floor? What happened? And I told him, I was pulled on the floor. I don't want to move. I'm scared. And when he touched me, he thought I was freezing cold. He looked at my foot and he saw a red mark all over my ankles, both of my ankles. He picked me up off the floor and he carried me in his room, and he kept blessing the room. He left me in his room and he was blessing my room. He was saying a prayer in Spanish that what Betsy told him to say if anything happens. And he came back to her and said, don't worry, you're not going in that room tonight. And he had put olive oil on my head and he washed my ankle. He had holy water or something. When I had went to bed, he put the Bible underneath my pillow on his bed. He said, you just stay on this pillow, you're fine. Just go back to sleep. The next morning, he asked me, how are you feeling? I said, my feet really hurts. And he looked, there was a bruise on my ankle. You could have tell it was like something grabbed me. It was around my left ankle. I said, okay, don't worry about it. Just keep it quiet. Don't say nothing at school. Just be when we get home. Just stay quiet about this. Tell him, okay, I understand, Daddy. I'm not going to say nothing. I'll just keep quiet. That day, he took me to Betsy, and Betsy did a blessing on me. He looked at my foot, and the mark was gone. But she did a blessing, and she put something around my ankle that could never be taken off unless you actually physically cut it. It was like a braided anklet, but she burned the way it's hard for me to explain it. The anklet itself, it was in certain colors. It was like a pink and a whole bunch of different colors, but she took it out of a bowl where she was doing a blessing on, and I guess she burned the thread so it cannot be removed off my foot. My father has the same one around his foot. And it never got taken off. I never took it off until like 3 years ago. The next few days gone by, I feel like the presence that were in the house was directed towards me. And there would be times where I'm out on the porch and I would hear a deep voice call my name. And I would run into the house thinking it's my father. And every time I run into the house, my father never called me. He's laying on his bed watching his TV. And I would tell him and say, Daddy, you call me? Then no, I didn't call you. And I'll keep coming in over and over again to the point he says, leave me alone. Don't bother me. Don't harass me. I said, but I'm hearing you call me. And he looked at me and he see that I was scared. I'm like, I'm hearing you call me. Like, stop playing with me. This is not a joke. I'm not joking with you. I said, you tell me to come to you and I'm feeling something weird. I'm telling you that I'm hearing you call me. He's like, okay, just come sit down and watch TV with me then. Hour goes by. I feel something in my throat, like a ball. And my father, he sat out of his bed and he lift up his vest and he has seen marks on his back. I said, were you scratching yourself? He's like, how can I scratch myself? I can't reach back there. As I took a picture off his phone and I showed him. I said, look, this is what's on your back. And he looked and he's like, this can't. He's like, this is a joke. You can't be serious right now. He went and he make a phone call. He come back in the room. He's like, you know what? You're staying with your sister tonight. I said, okay. I pack up my little bag and I spend the weekend by my sister. And my father stayed in the house because he wanted to continuously blessing the house. He wants to continuously do prayer without me being present because he feel like everywhere I go, I was getting something. Something that was happening towards me or him when I'm around him, because he never experienced anything when I'm not around. It's only when I was around. But during that time he was blessing the house, he went to the landlord's niece that lived down the road. And he explained to her what was going on. And she immediately said, you're experiencing that too. So I guess the people who lived there before us, they were experiencing similar encounters. They only experienced it when her god kids would come over. That's when she would experience certain things at night. She went and disclosed that a little boy had passed away in the house when the house was just built. He had cancer and he passed away. So every time there was a child in that apartment, it was always something that happened. And it caused the woman to move. And she moved further up north side. My father had tried to get in contact with a woman, but it seems like she had experienced something that was so scared to her that she didn't want to disclose anything. She just said that you just need to continuously bless your house because whatever is in there is not leaving. When I came back to the house, my father had took the door off my room so he can hear anything that goes on. Because he would hear at night, while I was gone, he would hear screaming in the house as if it was a child or I was the one screaming. Sometimes he would hear my voice or he would hear a voice of a little boy. And my father, he lost his son when he was a little boy. That was the first time I've ever seen my father cry, like in fear. At that moment, I had realized, like, that's real. This is not him playing jokes with me. This is serious. This is real. The next day after I finished school, my father went and picked up Betsy from her shop. She said in Spanish to my father, there's a disturbance in the air. There's a disturbance in the presence here. And she believed it was because of her and what she did the last time she was here. She started to explain to him, before you enter in the house, she felt the disturbance as the beginning of the hallway. Because you have to go down the hallway in order for you to enter into the house. She said she never felt an energy this powerful and disconnected to a house before. That's when she started to explain to my father, it's a child energy that she's feeling. She's not feeling anything else but the power of a child, energy of a child. She put her hand behind my back, and when she touched me, she picked up her hand quick. And she's like, why do you feel like that? Are you cold? No, I'm not cold. She's like, okay. She put her hand back against my back. And she pushed me towards the hallway. And she said that she felt like something was suffocating her. Like she wasn't supposed to be there. And she told me to stop in the middle of the hallway. And she said, just look back. She said that when I looked back, my eyes were black. She didn't see the white in my pupils. And my father's side, when she got to my door, it's like she couldn't go in. And it was like something was pulling her away from going into the door. She turned to my father and said, your daughter needs to leave the house right now and carry her by the roadside. Like, carry her by the road. And she was down there for over an hour. By the time I come back into the room, a lot of things were misplaced. There was stuff that was on the floor. She took off the bed sheets off my bed. She was burning sage. She was burning frankincense in the house and Palo Santo. She was burning all of that in the house when she was down there. And when she came back up, she looked at me and she's like, you will never have this issue again. I can assure you that. I don't feel anything anymore. And I hugged her. And when I hugged her, I felt on her arms that she had scratches on her wrists. While I was pulling away from her, I looked down. I said, Titi Betsy, why you have marks on your hand? She's like, don't worry about that. The trouble you was going through, you're not going to go through it anymore. Since then, we never had an experience like that in the house. But I started to ask questions in regard to the situation. And every time I brought it up to my father would just freeze. And that's when he started to disclose to me that he was getting dreams of the little boy hurting me. He was getting dreams of the little boy trying to pull me down as if he was trying to stop me from breathing and talking. He would have dreams of me in a bed sick. He said that he would see me covered up in a blanket and I had looked very skinny, very ill. He had believed that was how the little boy passed. That's when we started spreading information. That's when the little boy had cancer and he passed away in my room. The boy was around 6 years old. He had brown hair, like surfer type hair, and he had crystal blue eyes. He was a little bit shorter than me. When my father was seeing me and him in his dreams, the little boy's head was to my shoulder. But the little boy had a scar. It's like from his side of his forehead down to his eyebrow, he had a scar. And he would see the little boy looking healthy as if nothing is wrong with him. Or he would even see the little boy skinny and fragile. He would see the boy in dirty clothes. Just filthy. It looked like it was probably back in the 90s that little boy passed away. It seemed like any child that was there, he didn't want their presence to be there. And I'm not sure what Betsy did. It looked like he attacked her before leaving that property. Because when he saw her, she looked exhausted. She looked like as if she ran a marathon. And she had her hair wrapped up in a bandana. And it looked like her shirt was being pulled a lot. Like the front part of her shirt was dragged down. But after she did the blessing, we never experienced another encounter of that little boy there.
Hello, we're back. Welcome to Caribbean Mystics podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Paulina.
And I am your other host, Gabrielle. We're super excited to be here. And as you guys can see, we are here in the flesh, in person. Paulina came with her space buns.
I did. And if you're listening on a podcast, just letting you know, we are also on YouTube now because we decided to show our faces to the world and kind of just be like, you know what? We're going to do it. We talked about the Crooked Lip Club and we're like, fuck it.
Yeah. That, but also it's just like, I feel like it's time. And, you know, it's funny because we leave every season and we're like, oh, yeah, like this is a lot of work. And we're not saying we're not coming back, but we are saying it's going to be a minute because it's a lot of work. And then we come back with more work on our plates.
Like, what else can we do to fill our plate?
Yeah.
But I will say we did find a new editing program that has been a little bit more streamlined. So now your girl Gabrielle has been dipping her toes and fingers and hands because she's been doing a buttload of the work this season. Let's just call this Gabrielle's season because 90% of everything you're going to hear this season is her. And she's been doing the audio, the editing. I'm so proud of her, learning all these extra skills and finding these stories too, working on the marketing, contacting people. And I wish I could have been there more for this season, but as some of you already know, like I recently had a baby who's crazy. She's 10 months. She's 10 months now. It's going to be almost a year, which is so wild.
And an absolutely beautiful baby at that. But one of the mysteries that hopefully we'll solve in one of these seasons is why Paulina keeps giving birth to redheaded babies.
She's not redheaded.
That's the mystery that we need to uncover.
It is odd because I don't know like any redheads in my family. So very strange. I do have a Viking baby daddy though, so could be that.
Okay. But Paulina, tell the people, give us some updates on what's going on with your life. It's been over a year, so when this episode drops, it'll be about a year and 4 or 5 months since last the people heard from us. So give us a little bit of update of what's going on. And I love your pentagram shirt. You're such a rebel. You don't care about nothing, Miss Anna.
I don't. You know, I consider myself like an offbeat Caribbean girl, and it's taken me many years to kind of accept that and be proud of that rather than be like, I'm not normal. I'm not like anyone else where I'm from. But I'm like, whatever. I can't help it. And thank you. I actually made this shirt. Updates. Well, as you know, I had a baby recently, but now it doesn't seem so recent because she's going to be 1 year old in 2 months. We recently moved into a home. We lived in a fifth wheel for like 4 years, which was exciting, but you know, I got too much shit. I'm a maximalist and I like to collect shit too. So I'm still furnishing and making it feel like a home because right now it's so blank because I'm like, I don't know. I need time, and with little children especially, I don't have a lot of that. So like I mentioned, Gabrielle's been doing a lot of the work this season. And then other than that, like just momming. I started a TikTok. So I'm trying to get to Gabrielle's level, you guys. So help me out.
Tell the people about that viral video that you just got. Paulina hit a viral video.
My first viral. It's a humbling 30,000 views though. Like let's be real.
I love this though. 30,000 is a lot.
Thank you. But it was about the mermaid story that we did with Clyde from season 1. And I pretty much just retold the story in mom mode because, like I said, when you're a mom, lack of time with things. So I'm cooking as I'm telling this story. But it got a lot of reviews, a lot of comments, people really interested in it, wanted to hear more. And so I just went into the deep dive about the mermaid. And if you're new listening to this season, go back to season 1, episode Mermaid in the Water. Yeah. Don't remember which one, but
maybe episode 6, season 1.
You always seem to know the episodes too.
Because I've listened to them over and over and over again. Because I am like just strange.
Obsessed.
Yeah. I love
But
what I
yeah,
do. Like, I love the podcast about it.
me too. So yeah, I'm trying to like build a spooky following, So come follow my page. I think I go by Paulina Creepy. Uh,
I
just
love
to
it.
play on my
Clever.
last name. Yeah, Paulina Creepy. So, anyways, so Gabby,
Yes.
what's been going on with you? Fill
Well,
us in.
um, you guys won't be hearing as many chickens in the background because I did mow.
Oh no.
I'm working on also getting her together. So been working on that, but slowly because it's not a race. Um, I did want to tell you guys that for the next episodes that we film, I'm praying that my portable AC comes in. So it's one of my latest investments. And so when that's in, I'll be able to have the fancy hairstyles and the outfits and the makeup. But right now it's like extremely hot in the Virgin Islands. So there's that. But other things, I had a really cool opportunity that came up last August to be the co-host for Tempo Hot Ones Caribbean. So if you're familiar with Hot Ones, the national franchise, there's a Caribbean version that I got to co-host for season 3, which took place in the Virgin Islands. So that was really exciting because it was my first major production situation. And what else do I have going on? Um, I feel
I
like
feel like
there's always
looking
so
at your
much.
stories, you've been doing tours too, like
Oh
on your
yeah.
stories, right?
Oh yeah, I've been doing this adventure series that's actually taking off on Instagram and Facebook, where I be taking people around because I'm trying to get my Virgin Islanders to see that not only is there a lot to do in the Virgin Islands, but that we have to take up space because, gentrification is happening. I launched my merch. So I have several shirts now. I launched my Patreon so I can no longer complain that I don't make no money and this is all free and I'm in a deficit. So that's been a huge help, actually. But yeah, I am super excited to get back to the podcast. I will say that I could not do this podcast year round because it takes so much time and effort and energy. And sometimes I need a little bit of a break from the paranormal and supernatural. Um, because I have other interests. Not that it's not absolutely amazing all the time. But I'm also finding that I deeply crave this podcast and this type of creative expression. And so I feel like once a year feels like the perfect time frame for me personally in being able to do this and not feel overwhelmed or frustrated. And there are moments of overwhelm, but for the most part, I feel like one season a year is probably all that I can do to be able to show up for you guys in the most beautiful way possible. So I've learned a lot in the last year. And one of
I
those
feel
is that I
you.
can't live without the podcast.
I feel you. Too much spooky stuff in your life, I've noticed personally, the spooky thing starts coming to me. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I need to balance it out.
Yeah.
Because come nightfall, I'm just like, I'm
Yeah.
such a scaredy cat. It's weird
No,
because
I
we
get
do
it.
this. Yeah.
Hmm.
And I find stories for a living with the other podcasts that I work for. And I'm just like, I can't. I can't. I need a break from this. I need a break. I don't watch horror movies anymore, supernatural movies anymore, especially after kids. I don't know why. It gets
I
in my
get
head.
it. It infiltrates the psyche. So I
Totally.
completely understand. And one of the things, so this season, I did do a lot of the editing and the story collecting and stuff. But I also wanted to shout out Sarah Ann because there were moments where she was able to step in and help with editing, and not just that, but also counsel me on when I first started editing stories, like she was able to assist with giving feedback or even teaching me how to use different facets of the script that I just wasn't familiar with. And so shout out to Sarah Ann for just always being there
Yes.
and willing to support um, our creepy Caribbean mystics endeavors. And then also, I don't know if you had a chance to watch our movie trailer, but we put out a movie trailer to advertise season 3. And my cousin Allison Carrard, is a videographer. She usually does videography work for weddings in the Virgin Islands, but she did such a fantastic job collecting the footage and stringing that video together. Like, I am so blown away. So you'll probably hear her ad after this. Please listen to the whole thing, for both her and Sarah Ann, because this podcast would not be as amazing as it is if we didn't have people like Sarah Ann and Allison willing to step in for free, to help us out. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Girl power.
Oh yeah. So I know we've done a lot of talking, but we haven't gone into the story. But I think that this amount of talking is super appropriate because that was a super scary story. And I think we needed to
Yes.
break up that energy.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't even think about that. I keep forgetting that our listeners are listening to the story first and then they're segueing into our discussion portion. So that's actually a very good point. It's also the first episode of the season, so I feel like some updates and a little bit of extra talking is due.
Yes.
But let's get into it because I'm excited for this one. And we picked this story in particular as a first episode for season 3 because it was so epic.
Yeah.
Our storyteller is anonymous, as all you know. So let's give her a name so we don't accidentally spill her real name.
Let's find a good up Caribbean name.
Why am I thinking of Susie? Like episode
Susie
1,
came,
season 1.
Susie came to me too, but I just feel like we can't do that.
Susie's just a generic.
Let me find a good. I feel like Mildred keeps coming up. Let's a nice
Old-timey
name.
Okay, Mildred.
So this story actually it's really special that we got it. I'm so grateful. I hope that the person that shared this story will listen. Back to the story. I know that it could be traumatic, especially since I listened to Paulina's music edits on this story. And I was like, oh no, Paulina the Ova, because she literally took every opportunity to just bring that creep factor, which it sounds amazing. But I really hope the anonymous storyteller will come back and listen to the story and listen to the discussion, because I think that there might be a little bit more information that she gains just in listening back to it and then listening to the discussion. But I am so happy that we are using an anonymous story to kick off season 3. Because I have been having this instance where people really, really want to share. And then there is all of this fear around the stigma of a small community knowing their connection to these paranormal experiences or belief systems. And so it's always nice to bring an anonymous story forward to remind people that we can alter your voice, we can change your name, we can withhold your name, or we, Paulina and I, if you're truly not wanting to deliver a story, Paulina and I can deliver it for you. But I think capturing these stories are so important. So I'm super happy that this person actually chose to share their story, but do it under the guise of anonymity. And it actually took a year for us to get this story because this person reached out a year ago. And it was such a fantastic story, but there was so much apprehension around like, hey, like I personally don't know if I want this to be public. And I gave it a year and a voice in my head one day said, "Go call like y'all again and see." And I did. And she, a year later, was willing.
I think another aspect too is all fun and games, right? When it comes to scary stories, campfires, a spooky entertainment. But when this happens to a real life person, right, it's a very traumatic thing. And that's something that like some of us normies forget, right? When we listen to these stories, we're like, ooh, this is a good one. Some of the shit is straight up traumatic for people to go through. And it's hard to relay and relive again. I will say, though, that I commend these people that come out and share it and being brave. And I do hear a common theme after they share these stories is that they feel a sense of closure and like relief to get it off their chest. And we interview lots of people, and I interview tons of people every week as well. And
I
the
believe
stories are
you.
phenomenal.
Paulina be all through the Philippine. I was looking up scary stories, and there's like a Filipino like scary story group, and Paulina was deep in the trenches. I was like, Ariana, what are you doing here in the Filipino scary story Facebook
I'm
group?
everywhere. I'm global. I'm always on the hunt, man. But yeah, I'm so happy that Mildred decided to share.
Yes.
Um, there was something else. Oh yes, by the way, so it might not be up by the time our listeners are listening, maybe later on down the road, but eventually we'd love to get a Patreon going on. And
Yes.
there's a portion of this episode that we decided not to air because it kind of strayed from the story itself. But man, is it wild. Mildred goes into her family history. She goes into the Santeria side of her mother's side and how it affected her, and also this curse of how to gain power, of how their firstborn son had to be like a sacrifice, and her auntie went through it, her mother, her grandmother. It's really wild, the lineage, the Santeria and Brujeria like lineage that she speaks about within her family. So if we do have that Patreon up, be sure to check it out because that sneak peek is going to be in there.
We're gonna have it up. We're gonna have a Patreon by then. I am gonna work on it tomorrow. So
Girl,
stay
no
tuned for the
pressure.
stay tuned for the Patreon details, because if we're gonna do a YouTube, might as well. And Patreon is gonna be a really great way if you guys love the podcast and you want to continue to support us. Please consider signing on to the Caribbean Mystics Patreon and to get some of those behind the scenes.
Extra goodies.
Yeah, because we
But
have
that
stories
one's
we've never
really
released.
good.
Exactly.
Yeah, like little shorties, like little Caribbean
Yeah.
Mystic bites. So that's going to be a good addition. A lot of local legend lore,
Yeah.
interviews with like interesting people.
Yeah.
But let's get into it.
Yes. So
So
I think you should actually go first, P, because I know you wanted to talk about, we always start with the history of the space. And so I feel like it's only fitting that you kick us off with the first discussion of episode 1, season 3.
yeah. So Mildred, I feel weird calling her Mildred. Can we call her Shelly? Shelly.
Okay, but
So-
this ain't no Shelly, you know. Okay.
Mildred / Shelly. She talks about moving into this new apartment in Hull Bay area, Virgin Islands, St. Thomas. For those that are not familiar, this is on the north side of St. Thomas, where I grew up, and Gabriella also grew up. There's a large French Caribbean community that resides there. And originally, this beach was really known more as like a local spot, especially for Northsiders. It has a lot of ancestral fishing traditions tied into that beach as well that are still continue to this day. A lot of French festivities, Bastille Day, which recently happened, I think, right?
Yep.
And that is just an amazing fishing tournament and celebration. I know Gabrielle could go into more detail with that as well. But today it's a bit more populated with tourists. It's a bit more touristy. This used to be the spot, man, as kids. I loved Hull Bay for that reason. It was quiet, quaint. But now there's like villas, there's 8 cottages, there's the shack, there's like restaurant, a beach bar, and a lot more Jeeps parked outside. So not as quiet and quaint anymore. Still gorgeous and beautiful area on the north side of the island. And I was doing a little bit of a deep dive of the history because I wanted to know more. And I came across like an analysis. And it was during the summer of 1974. So did you know that actually, first of all, there was an archaeological site at Hull Bay? I had no idea. And hold on, I'm reading the
that site
analysis.
is actually super historically important. Yeah, I'll let you go into it.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about it.
Sure.
Okay. Well,
So-
maybe you know more than me, but I just found the analysis of like 2 skeletons that they found
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And they found like colonial nails, but they kind of like after studying these skeletons, they found that they are most likely two grown adult African descent males that they found in these coffins. One of them had Indian pottery, like indigenous pottery, next to his hand, but they're thinking that's not related. They're from two different eras. Like that pottery was back in, what did they say? Like AD 950 to 1250 AD. So they're assuming like accidentally while someone was burying these skeletons, they also found this piece of pottery and decided to bury it with the skeletons, with the deceased. Or archaeologists actually came across it as they were digging up the graves and found these bones. But lo and behold, after they studied the bones, actually they didn't study, they actually sent them to the Smithsonian Institute in Washington, which is such a shame because I feel like we don't have any like history here as far as like artifacts and indigenous, and they decided to send it there for further examination. But it also makes sense because I don't know if we have the capabilities to examine artifacts and bones as much as the Smithsonian would. But did they return it? I don't think so.
Part of their reasoning behind it, they say, is because we don't have anywhere that could properly house them. So like right now, I know I heard this recently that the national park in St. John found bones, and for whatever reason they haven't put the bones back in the ground, and so they just kind of have them waiting for God knows how long for them to actually, bury back these bodies. But there's storage lockers full of artifacts in St. Thomas right now that they found in different digs, but it's just like we don't have like a museum. And I know that there are organizations that are trying to rectify this problem, so I don't want to make it seem like it's this super tragic situation that's being uncorrected. But that dig was so important. It was so important because I want to say either the Washington Post or the New York Times around that time period when this dig was happening had a article that went out, and they were basically talking about how the findings of this dig changes the perception of when Africans first came to the Caribbean, because for a long time it was believed that Africans came to the Caribbean by way of the slave trade. But ancient text has always told the story of the Moors, who were world travelers and circumnavigators, and they were sea people, and they had traveled the world long before. And so Africans heard that lensing of history were in the Caribbean long before the European slave trade took place. And so those particular findings actually came into, I guess, combat with what had been a long-standing understanding of when Africans first came to the Caribbean. So they've tried to kind of wash it away with the whole notion of, oh yeah, maybe they were buried at the same time, and that there was just this pottery there that they decided to bury with them. But the whole long story short is that they don't know. And so all of that is just hypotheses, kind of throwing darts in the dark to figure out what the most possible circumstance is. But Hull Bay has such a rich history, and they had a whole Indian settlement at one point, or I should say indigenous settlement at one point. And so you can find, the pottery or even arrows, like arrowheads carved from rock on the beach. So the St. Thomas Historical Trust, I was there a couple weeks ago, and they had this absolutely beautiful arrowhead that someone had found right there in Hull Bay. It's incredible. Yeah.
That is awesome. And it's interesting you actually say that about this article, because reading this analysis, it's very it's dated, for lack of a better word. The terminologies they use and speculation. I actually remember this story you told me, Gabrielle, a while back when we first started this podcast, about how you were doing a walkthrough of the land in Hull Bay, and you saw this little boy right? You saw something.
Yeah, so
Is this okay?
it was in the general vicinity. So y'all know I work at a metaphysical shop, and there was a intuitive psychic medium reader who came. She lives in St. Croix. She's not from St. Croix, but she's absolutely fantastic. And she was doing psychic development classes at Sage. And one of her specialties is she does property readings. And so she invited me to go with her on a property reading. This happened on Hull Bay Road, so it wasn't actually on the beach itself. But we had a really interesting property reading of this piece of land right next to Suicide Hill, on St. Thomas, and you could literally see through your mind's eye the different time periods that lived on that one piece of land, right? And you could hear, like things out in the distance, cannons of ships fighting by Megan's Bay. And, like there was just a lot of energy going on. But speaking of stories, so as I was listening to Mildred's story, and she's talking about this little boy who keeps appearing, right? And he has appeared in several different ways. He's appeared in his dreams. He's appeared in his energy, pulling the shower curtain while she's trying to shower, locking the door. But then it gets really negative, right? So it's no longer just throwing the toys down that she had just stacked up when they moved in, right? It becomes more nefarious. And she spoke about a little boy that died of cancer that was 6 years old. And one of the things that came up for me is that I wondered if the little boy that died of cancer was possibly circumstantial. And I didn't get the feeling that the energy that still lived in the house was that little boy. Like I feel like whatever lived in the house, for whatever reason, felt very connected to children and could have been like a childlike demon. But like,
Presented itself as a
yeah,
child, yeah.
yeah. And for whatever reason, just had this like connection with children. But I just didn't feel like the little boy that died of cancer. Like, I just don't feel like he had a big enough motive to be the child that's out here dragging children off the bed and scratching people. Like I didn't feel that way. Or the other thing that came up for me is I wondered if maybe his illness was a byproduct of being in the house. And I say all of this with a lot of respect in the fact that this is somebody's child, right? And there are a lot of ways that this could have gone. And I know that this could be a potentially like emotional listen for somebody, for the person or the family that's connected to this particular soul. And so I guess this is one of the hard parts of having a podcast like this, is trying to walk the line of respect, but also really trying to get to the bottom of what we have going on here. And so that was one of the things that came up. But there's also a story. Y'all know I used to live on the north side, and my family has land very close to Hull Bay. And I always joke around about how I feel like this whole like swath of land is cursed, because there has been a lot of like discord among the families that live on the land. There always feels to be like there's something that stands in the way of peace, right? And sometimes when you hear the way in which some people die, it feels super like American Horror Story, like it just feels like there is something there at play. And I used to live over there at some point, and I used to have these horrible nightmares all the time, just living on that part of the land. But there was a story that I was told from an older family member, and this happened decades ago. And it was about a little boy whose father was an alcoholic. He had lost his wife earlier, and so he turned to alcohol, and he was very alcohol dependent. And the little boy was around the same age. He was around the age of like 6, 7 years old, and he had a little dog. And because his father was always kind of incapacitated, the little boy, would just kind of be to his own devices. And so one day, him and his dog on the land, and this is close to Hull Bay, on the land there's a creek. and the little boy goes down to the creek as he normally does with his dog, and the little dog jumps inside of the creek and kind of gets stuck in the creek. And so, in an effort to try and save the dog's life, the little boy jumps into the creek and he could not get back out and he ended up drowning. The father, we're gonna have to put a trigger warning on this, okay? So, mental note, we got a trigger warning. And so, the father, in all of his grief and feeling of, um, you know, guilt for the way that his son's life kind of went, he ended up taking his own life, right? And so there are those stories that are attached to this hillside. And I just feel like we, as people that kind of like live around the hillside, are just kind of like, oh, yeah, like just a bad stroke of luck. These are just bad circumstances. But I also think that it's quite possible that there is a lot more that's happening on that swath of land that I don't think we feel comfortable really delving into. But the reason I bring that up is because while it's not the exact same area that Mildred is talking about, it's very close, and I feel like the energy feels very similar. So I never dealt with anything that was like nefarious, dragging me out of bed. Like she was really dealing with some extreme, what I perceive as demonic activity. Kind of what she was talking about felt like that very weird energy that I also am familiar with on that other piece of land.
I kind of agree with you about the demonic energy because, again,
like I don't feel like no child.
No, after you interview, you talk, you hear stories, you start to see patterns, right?
Mm-hmm.
With these stories and hauntings and just things that just add up, make sense. And one of the things I notice as well is like this spirit or entity is really strong, sounds immensely powerful.
Yeah.
It has the ability to move things, alter temperature,
get into your dreamscape,
your dreams.
Yeah.
It's got like multiple powers, right? It's also physically touching her, pulling her off the bed. I imagine that takes a large amount of strength for a spirit to do, just turning to muster that up.
Turning her eyes black, like that's intense.
Yeah,
that's not childlike energy.
Yeah, maybe like a form of possession. There's a lot going on that points otherwise, and it may be presenting as a child, or maybe working through this child's spirit or something. And again, I get emotional when I talk about children, spirits that have passed, and everything that you pointed out and the respect of it, because it's just hard to hear those things, especially that story you told too was super sad.
Yeah,
because I have intrusive thoughts, so I often think about what would happen to my kids if something happened to them. Like, would they be okay in the afterlife? That's always my thought. Like, will my child be, who's looking after my child in the afterlife? Like, what's gonna happen to them? The last thing, right? If I hear my kid is haunting a house, running around, doing these things, like
you're stressing me out. What an unnerving thing to think about. Like your kid's out there, like haunting
you're
people's
thinking,
houses.
He's in a better place, but what if he's not? I'm sorry, because it reminds me of another tragic ghost child story that I heard on the other podcast that I work for. And it was very tragic. So I don't know. I hope he's at rest and better.
Yeah, I genuinely, just based off of hearing Mildred talk and based off of what my own experiences have been, talking to people in a metaphysical store, and, it just does not register for me that energy is a child. It barely registers for me that energy is human, to be honest. And so I think that while it may take up possession of the energy of a child, I feel like when it comes to demons, I don't feel like demons have walked this earth before. I don't think that they've ever had a human incarnation. And I've heard this from several mediums as well, where it's just like, it's not human. And it's not something that has the capacity to be human. I think that the child dying in that space brings a level of grief and energy, because it's just like, obviously the parents and that may have been a really habitable place for that type of energy to set up shop. But I just did not get the impression that the little boy that died of cancer was still there, appearing in those type of ways. Because that don't, for me, that don't feel like alignment in my truth in the way that I understand energies to work.
And then, of course, another pattern we hear a lot with demons or these type of malicious entities is they need some form of energy to consume, and that can be negative feelings, fear, grief, despair, sadness, and doing these mischievous things to rile that up out of a human being, a person in the matter, in this plane, this dimension, is probably like what it's trying to do. It's hunting, hunting Absolutely. And gathering. And on another note, though, Betsy, I'm surprised she didn't say more, on that aspect. Because she was saying, right, that she sensed a childlike energy, but it was like super powerful. And maybe this is something she could have been wrong about. I don't know. Or let's look at the other coin. What if it really was a child? Because imagine if this child died at 6, 10 years old, whatever, had resided in this place for an extra 20 years, 30 years. Do you think it would still have the mentality of a child anymore? They're just kind of immortalized in that state. But their mind, or what was their mind, their ambiance has probably grown or matured or started out frustrated. And now they're pissed off. They're stuck in this house. And they only get their kicks out of like messing with people. And I imagine... this is just where my mind goes when it comes to like spirits sometimes, is if they're stuck in a place for so long, they're bored as fuck, like what are they going to do? They probably have an arc of character as well, where they evolve into something else that they weren't before. And this actually brings me to mind of the show A Haunting at Bly Manor. I don't know if you ever saw that show. Mm-mm. Excellent show. Very scary though, so if you get scared easily, have a partner with you or watch it during the day. But there's this character arc of the spirit that's haunting the home. And she started out as a wife, a dutiful wife. She died sick in bed and wanted to leave her daughter her beautiful dresses and gowns and pearls, and locked it up tight in a chest. Her spirit remained in that chest, right? Until her like evil sister came, opened the chest and like took all her stuff. She became an enraged spirit, and essentially kind of killed her in the past life. She went from this nice, light-hearted, good spirit into a malevolent, evil being, to the point where over time, over years, she lost her sense of identity to where she had no face anymore. So now this spirit that used to have a face, used to be a mother, used to be a daughter, used to have aspirations, became this vengeful, no face, no personality, lost sense of identity spirit. And she would walk the halls of the manor, like black hair, drenched in water and faceless. And it just made me think, if this was the other side of the coin, this was a child spirit, what did it evolve into? Mm-hmm. Could it gain power over time and become strong enough to do these things?
I think that it makes sense for the story that you just told with that lady, because it's just like something happened to something that she felt connected to, right? So I've seen situations where, like, for instance, when you look at season 1, episode 4, Nicole's story, that took place in Solberg, right? There was a lady that was sick. She died in her home. Her home was very important to her. It's where she was able to have these memories with her children.
Good example.
Yeah, that home could be very ancestrally connected to her. Maybe it was passed down to her. Maybe her and her husband like really worked hard throughout their life to purchase that home for their children. And so the reason I bring that up is because I feel like at that point in time, your spirit has lived this earthly human life long enough to have these connections. when it comes to a 6-year-old child, I just don't know that they've had that level of life to have that deep-seated connection. And I would think personally, if a child's spirit, for whatever reason, decides to stay here after their passing and they're just in spirit, I would think that they would follow their parent, you know? Like
I think so too.
I would find it hard that the child would choose to be there for that extent of time. It's one thing to come and pass through and be like, oh yeah, like when I was alive in my last lifetime, I used to live here and let me go see what's going on. You pass through, you know, you flicker a light here and there because you just like to fuck around. And then you leave and you go back to who you are tied to and what you are tied to. So that's another reason why I can't wrap my head around it being a child. And
unless it's what you were saying though, like, what if this was like a child that didn't have a connection with their parents, you know, like, and the only connection was their room or something, you know? So that's what I'm thinking too. Like,
yeah, but then you go to the other side, like spirits
Mm-hmm.
actually staying here after death, choosing to be in this incarnation is actually really rare. Like, your spirit has to really have some things left undone for that to be a decision that you make, right, as an energy. Because you have a natural pulling to go to the other side. When death starts to come, you start to see the white light, and there's a pulling of your soul where you're pulled out of your body, and there is a almost gentle pushing of you toward where you're supposed to go. And you have several days to do this after you die. I think you have 9 days per Caribbean culture and belief system. From the day that you leave your body to the 9th day, you get to explore and roam and do whatever your heart desires. And then on the 9th day, if you have not transitioned yet, you're kind of stuck in a little bit of a limbo. And sometimes these spirits require help. Another reason why I feel like it's not our child is because even when you look at Bible doctrine, children up until the age of 7 automatically, quote unquote, go into heaven. And what that emphasizes for me as somebody that don't necessarily subscribe directly to Bible doctrine is that you don't have enough life experience at that point in time to have created the level of connection that would require you to stay here to do the things left undone, if that makes sense. You're so close to the veil, right? Between 0 and 7, you were so close to the veil. And even in the court of law, they're all like, if you're 7 and below, you technically can't, we don't consider you to be a conscious being, right? Which is why in the court of law, you can't really face, like murder charges or be tried as an adult because they don't perceive you to have lived enough time to have developed a level of consciousness that would imbibe like morality into your decisions. And so I have a hard time wrapping my mind around a child. And the other part of me in this is that I don't want this child mother to listen to this podcast and hear us speculate around the fact that her child that died at such an untimely death could possibly be the energy that's connected to this.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, yeah.
I know. All in all, though, we don't fucking know.
Yeah, we don't know. We just guessing.
We are, and it's part of the show, me and Gabrielle are just nerds for this stuff. So
yeah.
Deep diving, I just think of all these different theories and different things. Yeah. What could it be? So
you notice Paulina came this season and she's not skeptical. Do we notice that?
I'm still skeptical.
Last season, she was all like, oh no, maybe the figure that was in the closet could have just been the coat that was hanging up on the side.
I need to be the voice of reason. Though I'm all about the spooky mysticism, like I want to keep there's also a healthy level of skepticism that's needed. And it's funny because in my head, I'm like a full believer. But then when something really happens to me, like the other day, the lights were flickering in a really weird pattern. And I'm just like, nah, that's just the lights. Like, it's very hard to convince me. But when I hear people's stories, I believe them.
Me too.
But at the same time, I'm also like, this could be it. And this could be it.
Yeah.
You know?
You know
So
what
I'm gonna still
makes
be the skepticism for you guys, okay? Because we need the balance,
correct.
Gabrielle.
We do. We do. But you know what makes me believe Mildred's story is the level of detail that she has, I feel like is undeniable. Like, even when you listen, because you can go sign up for our Patreon and pay the $2 a month, to the $4 a month, to the $6 a month, and you're gonna go listen to the actual interview that Paulina had with Mildred, because there's so much information that Mildred gives about this scenario that's not even included in this
It's
story.
wild.
It's over an hour long. Okay.
It is. I
I
wanted to
highly
put it in
recommend.
this, but I couldn't. I just couldn't for time's sake. But it's super fascinating stuff, like I said. She died because I'm like, wait a second. So how did Betsy? It talks about Betsy too and Betsy's
Yeah.
backstory, who she is to Mildred. How did she get these powers? Why did she get these powers? It's really cool, honestly. Speaking of Betsy, I
Yeah.
really want to talk about her. I want to meet her. Like next time I'm on island, let's go to
Let's go. I
the
would love.
Botanica.
I would absolutely love that. And I'm so happy we're getting into Betsy because Betsy employed a series of protection charms that I personally have heard of, but never to a place where I felt like I could talk about them. And one of them was so Mildred's talking in the story about how her father rubbed olive oil on her head. And I feel like I've heard this in passing, but it wasn't something that I had ever heard, like, enough for it to be something that I perceive as like Caribbean spirituality. But I did some research, and apparently olive oil is used in several traditions. So there's the Jewish tradition that perceives olive oil to be like a divine presence. So similar to our notion of copal, myrrh, and frankincense. And then in the biblical side of things, olive oil is the main element used in anointing. So it's an anointing oil. So people use it for sacraments like baptisms. And I thought that was very interesting. Not to mention if just to speak about like the olive itself, like olives are always going to symbolize like no beginnings, which makes sense for the whole sacrament of baptism or even marriages. But even when we look at the story of the ark and the flood, one of the symbols that the flood was over and that it was one of the symbols of God's promise of never flooding the earth like that again was that there was a dove flying with an olive branch in between its fingers, talons, maybe instead of fingers.
With beak.
Beak, maybe in its beak. I don't know the Bible that well. Um, and so I found the use of olive oil to be a breath of fresh air because usually we'd have about a salt and a sage. And I also realized in my research, because this story is very steeped in Santeria, belief systems and lores and practices and traditions, that olive oil is used very regularly in Santeria, which is another form of spirituality that you find in the Caribbean. So some people call it Santeria, sometimes it's called Lukumi, and it's an Afro-Caribbean religion that was originally derived in Cuba. And it's a mixture between Yoruba religion of West Africa, Roman Catholic form of Christianity, and Spiritism. And so in Santeria, you'll find that they'll use saints, like Saint Michael, the Archangel, and Saint Gabriel. And so they'll use a lot of the same figures that you'd find in Christianity, but they also acknowledge the Orishas. And the Orishas are, the divine energies within various African spirituality forms and religions. And so Santeria was such a huge part of this story, which I really, really enjoyed because I don't feel like we have spoken about Santeria like that, or with any real capacity. So I was so intrigued.
Same, and I love exploring the other Caribbean islands and other practices as far as like magical practices and pretty ancient practices as well, historical, maybe not ancient, but I loved pretty much the anklet is sort of like an amulet, right?
Yeah.
It's a created wearable talisman, actually. That's what I'm thinking of. Like protection. And she handmade it, and I really wish she kept it. And I think she said that her dad still wears it to this day, too. But she had to take it off when she got pregnant and got those swollen ankles.
Was it that it
fascinating.
broke off of her when she
Oh,
gave
yes.
birth? I
Maybe
think,
that's what it was.
yeah, if I'm not mistaken, this is why you need to go sign up for our
Wait, while
Patreon.
she gave birth?
I think it broke off when she got pregnant, which because I remember being so blown away by what she was talking about, because
Yeah.
essentially in this part of the interview that you should go and listen to on Patreon, she's talking about how there was always this energy within her family of Santeria. It was something that was practiced ancestrally, and so there was this promise of a firstborn son. And so you kind of sacrificed your firstborn son in order to really embody these powers. And I feel like her story was talking about how when she got pregnant, you know, like it was almost like the breaking of the curse, because she ended up giving birth to her firstborn son versus him being lost in some sort of way. So it was a really beautiful story. But when I was doing research on this anklet, because I really wanted to understand, because this is the second time this week I've encountered someone talking about this bracelet or an anklet, and apparently in some cultures it's called an eleki. And the eleki is, as you said, it is a protection symbol, but it's also a connection to your ancestry. They hold deep spiritual meaning, and they're believed to enhance feminine energy, connect to the divine feminine, promote fertility, promote prosperity, as well as the protection that we spoke about. Receiving this necklace or eleki is a ceremony very different to baptism. So it is an initiation into the religion of Santeria, the way of the saints or orishas. It is a purification ritual, like the shedding of old skin, where you start your new journey into the world of the sacred.
Those are also like the beads that they wear,
Yeah.
right? Because I know
Yeah.
that the beaded necklaces are very significant in Santeria as well.
Yeah. And you can find them around your neck, around your wrist, or around your ankle. And it makes sense to put it around the ankle of a child because they have less, you know, they won't tamper with it as much. They kind of forget it's there versus it being on their hand or their neck where it's readily visible. But part of the reason why I'm pretty sure it's an eleki is because when I was doing research on Santeria and these bracelets, that's what they refer to it as. But all of the bracelets that I saw were multicolored. And she, in her description of the bracelet, indicated that these were bracelets that were
Same.
different colors. Yeah.
That's right. And apparently different colors mean different significances. But I don't think there were beads on it, right? She said it was just threads. Is that right?
I think she said it was threads. Because I just listened to it. I don't remember
Yeah.
her mentioning the beads.
No, I don't think so either. And they were like burned at the ends. Like it was pretty much like an infinity anklet where you can't take it off. But if we have any listeners that have more on this subject as well and just want to contribute,
Please.
and feel free to email us, you know, we'd love to. Or if you have interesting stories surrounding Santeria or your family history, you know, that's very fascinating. Same thing.
Yeah.
Hit us up. We'd love to chat.
And I also want to say
another storyteller on this season mentioned Santeria too, though.
we might have a third
Right?
one because someone just inboxed me about a story from the DR,
Oh.
and the DR is definitely heavily steeped in Santeria. So
So
we might
the-
have three.
Yeah. Yeah, because our other story, so this is episode 1, I'm remembering. But another episode that we're going to have coming up this season is a story from Puerto Rico. And I think she mentions it very
Cuba too.
briefly, though. Yes. And but her story is not much about Santeria. It's definitely
Adjacent.
interesting, though. So
Yeah,
PR,
it's Santeria adjacent.
PR in the house.
PR
I'm
and
so
Cuba.
happy we're getting some Latin stories. Yes, we're getting some
Let
Latin
me-
stories this season because
Let me tell you, those are some of my favorite stories.
we need them.
They always come with so much gapseed, and there's always so much like interesting. The spell work that come through in the Latin stories are always so interesting to me. But one of the reasons why I am happy that this is a Santeria focalized story is because for a long time, and I've spoken about this before, we've demonized our African spirituality in our community. And so it's perceived just outwardly that Santeria is evil and voodoo and obia. And it's just like, these are healing practices as well. And it's a matter of people choosing how they want to use it. In the case of Betsy, with this particular story, Betsy is a healer. And Betsy is doing the very hard work of energy removal and protection and trying to instill more hope in the people around her, and protection. And I think that that's a really beautiful way to utilize this type of religion, energy, connection to divine source. But I always like to take a minute every time we talk about a modality or a religion to emphasize that the religion is not evil. It is the will of the person that is using it. And Santeria is just as healing as any other religion out there, but it's highly dependent on intention.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah, of course.
It's so demonized. It's been so demonized for so long, as so many years, all these magical practices and aspects. But it really goes back down to like colonization, especially like religious colonization. So, but let's continue, shall we?
Yes.
I think it's also funny though. Sorry, back to the religious thing, but he kind of mixed both of his worlds, right? Her dad, so also what you'll hear in the backstory of Mildred's story is that her dad pretty much removed Mildred from her mother because she was very into Santeria, but a little bit more of the darker side.
Yeah, the mixed morality.
Yes, and he really didn't want his daughter around that. But it's funny because Betsy is a family friend through her mother. So he came to her and he used a mix of, with the Bible and anointing with the oils and then chanting different prayers in Spanish and Santeria. So it's interesting and really cool, this mixture of these belief systems to relay what she wants to do. And I feel like that's the root of magic, right? It's not necessarily like, whose book are you following or which religion are you subscribed to? It's more eclectic and personal and what matters to you most. And I think that's what it is. That's what gets across to make it effective, is what makes it in your soul the most believable, whether it's that's like the flying spaghetti monster that you're like, that's my God, and you call on the name of the flying spaghetti monster and it gets rid of the demon. I think it's very much, it's the energy that you're trying to build up rather than the image. So I think it's cool that he used a mix of his beliefs and then also help from Betsy as well.
I was listening to something today, actually, that really inspired me it really deepened my perspective. And it was basically that this lady, her name is Fiona Horn, and she's an author.
I know who that is, yeah.
She's a witch, she's a pilot, she's a rock star, she's all the things. She was talking to George Norrie on Gaia.
I don't know who that is.
He is fantastic. But so she's talking to this guy and she's in an interview and he's asking her about her perception of people who practice like Christianity. And she was basically talking about how she looks at it as if you have a flower box and you put in different species of flowers, you find that the health of those flowers are better because there's diversity in the box. Versus if you put in the same type of flower, the flowers don't do as well as they could have if there was more diversity. And she said that she felt like the love of God was one that craved diversity in the way that the love is received, given, shared. And so to make people provide love in the same exact way to a God that created all of us in our own unique capacity feels counterintuitive to the way that you would expect that God would want to receive love, which would be in your own unique capacity to give it, as you are your own unique person, as that's how you were created. And I thought that that was a really beautiful way of making it okay to just be who you are and to connect with what you feel called to.
That is. I really
Yeah.
love that.
It came right on time for today.
Yes, definitely. So, what happened after that? I'm sorry, I'm just retracking the story because this is such a long story, actually.
Yeah.
Oh
So
my gosh. I think one
that's
of my favorite scenes,
mhm.
I know I'm gushing, but in my head, I just can imagine Betsy stepping into that house. And the way that Mildred describes her, right? She just seems like so strong and put herself together, and she's like coming in the house. And then the scene where she's like walk down the hallway and turn around and her eyes go black. And she's like, all right, get the fuck out of here. Let me do something.
It's just like, oh no, we've allowed this thing to fester too long. Like you're in actual mortal
Yeah.
danger. That's that energy of, oh, you're in mortal danger, my
Right?
girl. It's
Well, the
time
first
to.
time, and then the first time she went in the house, right, and did some chants and tried to bless the house,
Mhm.
it made it worse. And again, like we see that pattern a lot with demonic presence
Yeah,
in the house, is it tends to make things worse
yeah,
when they're ruffled. Their feathers are ruffled. They're like, you trying to kick me out? Okay.
yeah,
Let me step it up. And so then when
yep.
she came in this last moment, like Ghostbuster mode, and I'm just imagining the scene when she comes out of the house and she's like disheveled and there's scratches on her and her shirt's tugged. And when I hear about the shirt tug, I do think of a child in a sense, like pulling, like, no, having a temper tantrum of like not wanting to go. But that scene,
I that scene is very creepy, and Ed and Lorraine Warren, who are the people that movie The Conjuring, that's based off of a true story. So Ed and Lorraine Warren, for those of you who don't know, are um they're demonologists, they're experts in exorcism and all the
I'm on the
things.
fence with them, by the way. I'm like
Um
half on board and half not.
I have seen some questionable practices. I would love to get into it with you.
Yeah,
But
another episode.
another episode because we're already an hour in on the discussion.
Hmm.
But they were basically talking. I was listening to them do an interview. As you can tell, I listen to a lot of interviews. And they were talking about how one of the worst things you can do when you are dealing with a demonic energy is to go in and stir it up, but not actually remove it, because you're basically antagonizing it and you are encouraging the series of events to occur a lot faster and a lot more rampant way. And so they were specifically talking about holy water and how oftentimes you'll see people try to get their own bottle of holy water and deal with the situation themselves. But because they are not trained and they're not very well versed, and they end up really stirring up the energy inside of the home and making the situation a lot more dangerous. And I feel like Betsy seems like she's actually really attuned and really great at what she does. I think this energy may have been a lot stronger than she anticipated because she
Yeah.
literally just went to the house to bless it, which is a far different ceremony than it would be to actually remove an entity from the house. So, and a lot of times these energies are just curious. So, oftentimes people cohabitate with entities all the time. And you guys just live together and you may not know it, you may know it, and you guys don't kind of step on each other's toes and it's fine. And maybe they flicker the light here and there, you cuss them off, tell them, now in the time or whatever, and then it deals with the energy, which is normally what happens. These instances where you have an entity that is destructive and malicious and violent, because this energy was a violent energy, um, this is a very rare occurrence. And so when she came in, she probably didn't even know what she was dealing with. She just thought she was doing a regular blessing and did what she would normally do, not realizing that this was a much more powerful energy.
Yeah. And can we talk about the father and his his character arc pretty much being like, no, 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 no. In denial, and how difficult that must have been for him to be this protector of his little girl and not being able to protect her, and finally coming around to where he's doing all the little chanting and rituals and
and it's an old-time Caribbean belief of if you ignore it, it'll go away, and it sometimes works. Like if you ignore it, it'll go away. But there were instances where in the story, it wasn't her fault because she was a child, but there were instances where there were little permissions that were given. So one of the permissions is in the story, she's talking about how she would hear her father's voice calling her name, and she would keep running into his room to be like, hey, daddy, you called me or whatever, and he's consistently being like, no, Miguel, like, I didn't call you, I don't know what you're talking about. And something as simple as answering to your name being called is a permission. That you always hear about, growing up in this region of the world. You don't answer if your name call. You wait 2-3 times for the name to be called or whatever before you say yes. And so there were these little instances where it's just like the energy was ramping up, and I could understand the father being apprehensive and even taking it on, because ignoring usually works for a lot of people.
But not this time.
Not this time.
Well, I think we've kind of talked it out with this episode. It might be a little bit longer than normal, but that's okay. Was there any last words or input you wanted to add?
I did want to say that it is longer, but it is our first episode back after a year and a half. So, bear with us. And I think my final note here is that
sorry,
no problem. Paulina and I really do try to do a job of giving you guys something that's entertaining, but also giving something that is integrity based. And I think this episode has been challenging in us doing this discussion, because we always just want to make sure that we are respectful of the living and the dead. And so I found this to be a little bit more challenging on the discussion side. And I hope that challenging nature actually showed through in this discussion, because sometimes it's not a ha-ha hee-hee situation where we could kind of like explore the ethers, and sometimes it's darker, and sometimes it's ridden with grief and complex emotions. And we love showing the interesting stories, but we never want to sensationalize them in a way that feels exploitative to the people and the families and the practices and traditions that are connected to these stories. And so I just wanted to say that we really do try to do our best.
Well said.
Thanks, friend.
Well, we hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and catch us next week for episode 2 of Caribbean Mystics Podcast.
Whoop, whoop.
And you know the drill. Share, like,
please
subscribe, and send us some of your stories. And we'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.
Thank you for listening to Caribbean Mystics Podcast.
If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to share with your family and friends. Like, follow, and subscribe to keep up with all of our spooky Caribbean content.
Do you have a story you'd like to share that took place in the Caribbean? Email us at caribbeanmysticspodcast@gmail.com. That's caribbeanmysticspodcast@gmail.com. Or check the show notes for more info.
Caribbean Mystics is created and hosted by Paulina Creaky and Gabrielle Carrard. Theme song is Folktale Jouvert Riddim by Marcano.